Have you ever found yourself lying awake at night, asking questions like, what am I doing with my life? Why do I feel so empty kahit na parang okay naman ang lahat? O kaya naman, ano ba talaga yung meaning ng buhay? Or ano ba yung meaning ng mabuhay? So these moments of questioning is part ng human being, part ng pagiging individual natin as tao. So, nangyayari 'to kapag may mga kinakaharap na tayo ng mga realities in our lives na kapag nagsa-struggle na tayo with these questions, meron tayong existential therapy that helps us make sense of it. Na it's not about fixing a person, but it's about helping them discover meaning and live more authentically. Good day, everyone. I am Micaela Carissa Fatima Aldana, together with my co-presenters, Micaela Acacio and Lovelyn Gael Aquino. And today we're going to discuss existential therapy approach and counseling. So, existential therapy is a type of psychotherapy that explores the fundamental question, how do I exist in this world? It helps people understand themselves in the face of life's uncertainties, conflicts na nararanasan natin, even the concept of death na meron tayo. So, yung goal is to help individuals live with the life of an authenticity. So which means being true to oneself, that we accept freedom, limitations, and responsibilities. Sinasabi nga natin dito na we are beings of potentials, that we are capable of creating meaning even in suffering. So sinasabi dito that being in the world ang isa sa pinaka-concept na meron ng existential therapy. That we exist physically, socially, and psychologically. We live in a relationship with others and with ourselves. So ano nga ba yung mga basic philosophies na meron ang existential therapy? So first we have all person have the capacity for self-awareness. So we are not robots, di ba? Hindi tayo victims lang ng fate. We can reflect, we can make choices, and shape our own lives. Next is that as free beings, everyone must accept the responsibility that comes with freedom. So existential therapy teaches us that freedom and responsibility goes hand in hand nga. Na parang sinasabi dito na we are living in a life that we can make our own choices, that we are embracing freedom responsibly. And then next, that each person has a unique identity that can only be known through relationship with others. So we believe that the central to our existence is love, care, and relationships. That genuine relationships is nag-produce siya or nagpre-predict siya sa atin ng magkaroon ng authentic relationship with ourselves and with other people. And the next is that each person must continually recreate himself. The meaning of life is never fixed. So, sinasabi nga ni Rollo May, di ba, that being a human is a constant process of becoming. So, our life is not fixed. So, we can grow, we can learn, and experience new things. And then next is that anxiety is part of a human condition. Meron nga tayong sinasabi na dalawang types ng anxiety, di ba? Normal anxiety and neurotic anxiety. Na in-embrace natin yung idea that anxiety is natural, na hindi to something that we should eliminate. Na dito sa existential therapy, we help clients to face anxiety na hindi para takbuhan to and maging source siya ng strength and not a weakness. And then last is that that is a basic human condition that gives significance to life. So dito lang remind na that reminds us that life is temporary and we are going to make our own life more meaningful and face the concept of death. So, papalawakin pa natin yan sa mga susunod na part ng ating presentation.
Thank you very much for that insightful introduction. And I am Teacher Lovelyn, and I will further discuss about the key concepts, the basic dimensions of human condition according to existential approach. So first, we have the capacity for self-awareness. So ano nga ba yung nilalaman ng self-awareness? We have their freedom, choice, and responsibility to form the foundation of awareness. So itong awareness, it actually includes recognizing kung ano yung limitasyon natin and kung ano yung boundaries natin. The choices that we make every day, and of course, yung responsibilidad natin na tayo mismo yung gumagawa o nag-shape ng ating buhay and that we are not dependent on others. Second, we have freedom and responsibility. Kanina, nasabi na freedom and responsibility goes hand in hand. And is it did true dahil tayong mga humans, we are free to choose kung ano man yung choices na gagawin natin. That is why tayo yung may hawak o nag-shape ng ating identity. And then, yung true freedom, it is actually implying that accepting one's responsibility and living authentically is according to one's values rather than we blame the surroundings, we blame the circumstances, or we blame other people. Third is striving for identity and relationship. So we know this by now that no man is an island. But as we strive and maintain our relationships with others, we mustn't lose our sense of self, our individuality, while we make meaningful relationships. And as we go along, as we form bonds and connections with other people, we must ensure to ourselves na hindi natin mawawala yung sarili natin and hindi tayo magfo-fully identify. We don't fully attach ourselves too much with this relationship na hindi na natin kilala yung sarili natin. Fourth is the search for meaning. So, as humans, we tend to find and or struggle for meaning making dahil yung pagkakaroon ng sense of purpose, it is actually central sa ating existence bilang isang tao. And kapag hindi na natin nabibigyan ng meaning yung isang bagay, it leads to emptiness or katulad nga ng sinasabi dito na existential vacuum. So, existential vacuum, it actually sucks the life out of us. Nadidrain tayo dahil bilang isang tao, we struggle for finding significance and purpose. And kapag nawala yun sa atin, yung drive or yung motivation to go along the way, dito tayo nawawalan ng sense of self. That is why existentialist therapy, it helps clients to create the good values and discover purpose through their active engagement doon sa buong therapeutic process. Fifth is anxiety as condition of living. So, meron ngang good and bad anxiety, and yung existential anxiety, it arises dahil kinoconfront natin yung mga hindi norms or yung mga bagay na kinakatakutan natin, freedom, death, and isolation na talagang mangyayari o hindi natin siya matatakasan. It's inevitable, but it can be used to constructively go as a motivation for growth. And itong mga bagay na ito, yung freedom, death, and isolation, it is to be accepted rather than avoided o takbuhan na lang natin sila. Kailangan natin silang i-confront. And last but not the least is awareness of death and non-being. So awareness of death, it gives us meaning to our life that we have to give importance to our life dahil yung buhay meron siyang hangganan and we have to fully live it to how we want to make legacy out of it. Instead na katakutan natin yung kamatayan, it should be able to motivate us na mas bigyang purpose pa yung buhay natin to live it fully dahil we only live once and we should appreciate the present, the people around us, the people that we share our lives with, that we share meaning and we share purpose. And of course, all in all, awareness of death and non-being, it requires us to take responsibility to how we live. Yung legacy na maiiwan natin sa mundo, and ito yung maiiwan natin sa mga tao na nakakasama natin. And for our next presenter,
So, for our next part, we have the goals of therapy. Ano nga ba ang goals ng existential therapy? So, first, we have to encourage clients to recognize where they are not living authentically. Ibig sabihin nun, tinutulungan natin ng clients natin na ma-realize kung ano ba yung mga parts ng buhay nila where they are questioning yung worth nila, yung buhay nila, and kung paano ba nila ginagawa or binibigyang meaning yung yung life nila as an individual living in this world. Next is to assist clients in moving toward authenticity and acknowledge self-deception. So dito, mas binibigyan natin sila ng idea kung paano ba nila mas encourage natin sila na ma-acknowledge kung ano ba yung self-deception na meron sila and denial within themselves. And then next is to help clients face anxiety. Katulad ng sinasabi natin na hindi siya para katakutan or layuan yung anxiety na nararanasan natin, but for it to become a tool or a weapon for us to live our life more meaningful or more purposeful. So next is to teach clients to listen to their inner knowledge and latent potential to support them and guide them to have a more meaningful choices sa buhay nila na yun nga sinasabi natin na as existentialist, we're not looking sa idea ng past experiences na dun lang yon. It is more on the potential kung ano pa ba yung meron mas na mai-improve natin. Dito yung pumapasok sa idea ng existential therapy. And then next is to promote increased self-awareness, enabling clients to see alternative possibilities and make meaning changes in their way of being. Dito mas ini-encourage natin sila to see the brighter side of life na hindi lahat negative, that we can be better, na mas marami pa tayong pwedeng tignang outlook kung saan mas may encourage natin and mas matitignan natin ang beauty ng life na meron tayo. Sinasabi nga dito ni Bugental na meron tayong three main tasks sa therapy, which first is to recognize lack of full presence in therapy and in life. Ano ba yung parang nagiging cause ng thinking, ng problem ng client na meron tayo. And then next is to confront the avoided anxieties na hindi para takbuhan na yung idea ng anxieties na katulad ng sinasabi natin kanina pa na it's for us to help us realize more about our lives. And then the next is to redefine self and world to foster genuine engagement with life. Sinasabi nga natin dito na therapy helps people find the courage to stop conforming, na hindi lang siya yung idea ng dito lang to, ito na lang yung buhay ko, but to live as more meaningful and more purposeful. So next we have
For our next part, I will be going to present it, and I am Micaela Acasio from Group 3. Okay, so for the therapeutic relationship, in existential therapy, the therapeutic relationship is considered the very heart of the counseling process. It places greater value on the genuine human connection between the therapist and the client. Now, let us delve deeper into the therapeutic relationship of existential therapy. For the first one, the therapist functions and roles. In existential therapy, the therapist's goal goes beyond just applying techniques. The therapist serves as a companion and guide who walks with the client in exploring the meaning and purpose of their life. The focus is not on just solving problems right away, but on helping clients reflect and find personal significance in their experiences during the therapeutic process. Next, the therapist models authenticity by being genuine and transparent during sessions. When clients sense that authenticity, they're more likely to open up, let themselves be vulnerable, show who they really are, and feel safe to explore deeper issues. Another important role is to facilitate self-awareness and encourage clients to take responsibility for their choices. Existential therapy believes that people have the freedom to shape their lives, but this freedom also comes with responsibility. The therapist helps clients see that they have the power to make choices and must also accept the consequences of those choices. Therapists also help clients confront existential themes like freedom, isolation, and death. This may sound heavy, but facing them allows clients to understand life's realities and create their own meaning instead of running away from discomfort or uncertainty. And last, as Bugental emphasized, one of the therapist's key functions is to help clients recognize how they limit their own awareness. For example, by denying their emotions or avoiding difficult truths, and to realize the cost of doing so. When clients expand their awareness, they open themselves to growth, authenticity, and a fuller experience of life.
Thank you very much for that explanation. And let's now go further into defining another concept of the therapeutic relationship, which is the client experience in therapy. So first we have is clients in existential therapy are encouraged to assume responsibility for how they are currently choosing to be in their world. So for existential therapy to be effective, we should not stop with yung pagbibigay natin ng ating awareness sa ating mga clients. So, our clients also need to take action. Ayan nga, sabi dito is to assume responsibility on the basis ng mga insights, ng mga reflections that they will develop throughout our therapeutic process. Next is that our clients must be active in the therapeutic process. For during the sessions, they must decide what fears, guilt feelings, and anxieties they will explore. So gradually, habang nangyayari yung ating pag-identify ng fears nila, yung kanilang anxieties, and yung iba't ibang emotions na nanggagaling sa kanila, they actually become aware of what they have been through. So, yung mga clients natin is napoproseso nila mismo kung ano yung nangyayari sa kanila, kung sino sila doon sa ginawa nilang mga situations and how they are able to better design sa kung ano yung future na gusto nila maging. So, sabi rin dito ni Rollo May, noong 1981 is when clients plead helplessness and attempt to convince themselves that they are powerless. May reminds them that their journey toward freedom began by putting one foot in front of the other to get to his office. So, di ba, napakaganda nun na yung pag-decide ng ating client na magpunta sa'yo bilang isang counselor or therapist and yung sa pag-engage niya sa psychotherapy itself, it is a frightening na pangyayari for most people dahil meron pa ring experience nung pag-open ng oneself and pagiging vulnerable. And yung pagiging vulnerable, it might be frightening to some, mixed emotion siya. Some clients might be exciting, joyful, or pagbubuksan natin sila ng pinto that they are in a depressing state. Pero as our clients open those closed doors, isa lang yung isa lang yung nangyayari that they begin to loosen up and free themselves from the psychological fetters or yung chains na nagbabound sa kanila that kept them from healing. Next is that existential therapists assist people in facing life with courage, hope, and a willingness to find meaning in life. So sa existential therapy, rather than focusing on solving problems, ina-identify din natin kung ano yung mga factors or yung nagiging hadlang or yung kanilang nagiging fear that hinders them into living a meaningful life and that hinders us from helping clients to assume responsibility sa kanilang mga sariling actions. And last but not the least, by Derzen and Adams in 2011, maintain that a therapist must resonate with clients' experience and struggle to face life honestly. So, yung kapasidad natin to resonate with our clients, yung pag-build natin sa kanila ng relationship, ng rapport, it requires the therapist to be fully present and understanding the client's need and to take part fully and work together in the therapeutic encounter na parehas silang dalawa and hindi yung isang side lang.
Next, we have the relationship between therapist and client. So, ang ganda ng sinabi ni Gail kanina na hindi siya basta yung iisa lang na parang nandun tayo para to know the situation of our clients. Na, yun nga sinasabi natin na yung therapeutic relationship is central dito sa existential therapy because hindi dito yung idea ng we fix our clients, but we walks with them. Na parang nire-resonate natin kung ano ba yung nangyayari sa kanya and iniintindi natin siya not to fix them or not to fix the situation but to guide them. So yun yung pinaka-idea. And then next is that Their therapist offers honesty, integrity, and courage, not techniques. Again, hindi siya techniques. So, hindi natin basta lang ginagamitan ng techniques ang client natin as therapist dito sa existential therapy na we build our relationship with our clients based on honesty, empathy, and presence. And then dun nga natin sinasabi na being genuine is not just technical. Parang kailangan nating mas malaman pa kung ano yung ugat ng mga pangyayari bago na para maintindihan natin ang isang bagay. And next is that therapy is a shared journey into the client's perceived world, requiring therapists to be aware of their own experiences. Sinasabi nga natin dito, 'di ba, na bago tayo makabuo ng connection sa client natin is mas magandang alam natin kung paano natin dadalhin yung sarili natin sa kanila na parang by being genuine, by being honest, and by being empathetic sa kung ano yung nararanasan nila is isa sa pinakamagandang relationship or paraan ng pag-build ng connection with our clients. And then next we have the Buber's I-Thou relationship. So meron tayong I-It, basic to ng nire-relate natin ang isang tao as an object. So mas binibigyang halaga dito yung I-Thou relationship na ang relationship is direct. It's a direct, mutual, and present interaction that enable us to have an authentic dialogue and connection with other people. And then next, we have the respect and faith in client's ability to cope and grow. So, nandito yung tiwala natin sa mga clients natin as therapists na kaya nilang lagpasan kung ano yung pinagdadaanan nila ngayon and kung ano yung problemang kinakaharap nila. And then last is the presence of therapists energizes and supports life-changing work. So mahalaga ang gampanin ng therapists sa isang therapy session ng existential therapy na kung saan hindi lang to para lang i-fix yung problem ng client, but to help them realize kung ano ba yung reason and to lead them and guide them in the more meaningful life within themselves.
Yes, thank you for that, Teacher Carissa. And now let's move on to the techniques of therapy. First, ay na-emphasize kanina that existential therapy, it is not technique-oriented. Rather, it focuses on understanding the subjective world of the client rather than applying fixed methods. So, itong existential therapy, it is not techniques that a therapy uses to make a therapeutic difference na ma-heal natin yung ating client. Rather, it is yung quality ng client and therapist relationship na makakapag-heal both sa client and of course, yung successful relationship natin as a therapist. And therapy as a shared journey, katulad din nung kanina pa namin ine-emphasize na hindi lang yung client yung nandito sa process na to, kundi that they walk together and that the practitioners or the existentials are not bound by specific techniques, although existential therapists, they may apply techniques from other therapists, from other orientations, from other theories, pero yung kanilang interventions, yung kanilang approach should always be guided by the philosophical framework about what it means to be human. Next is the therapist as a philosophical companion. Maganda yung sinabi dito ni Von Tres 2013 in which he stated that existential therapists prefer to be thought of as philosophical companions, not as people who repair psyches. So, Elkins in 2016, meron siyang mga na-found out na studies that the finding shows na hindi technique yung little to do with effectiveness. Pero yung common factor na meron sa kanila is that it is shared with the real agents of change. So, sino ba itong mga real agents of change? Ito yung mga clients natin. So, maganda dito na hindi yung technique nakabound yung paggaling ng isang client natin, kundi sa mismong tao. So Elkins has become convinced that the human elements of psychotherapy are the primary factors of emotional healing. Hindi siya sa techniques nang gagaling, kundi doon sa kagustuhan or yung sa ginagawa ng isang tao for them to achieve healing. Next we have is individualized and creative. So here, therapists adapt or create interventions suited to each client's uniqueness. Yung primary ground natin para sa existential work is for us to have a relationship that are open to individual creativity, yung ating therapist and yung client. And that existential therapist, kailangan natin maka-adapt to certain interventions na suited sa ating interventions sa personality and style natin bilang mga therapists dahil tayo mismo yung nag-guide sa client. So we should be sensitive to what the client requires and responsive din tayo sa uniqueness ng bawat client na kinakaharap natin. Next, we have the human connection as the agent of change. Common relational factors encompasses empathy, presence, and authenticity. And itong tatlong ito, it drives the effectiveness of the therapeutic process and it reminds us that existential therapy ay isang collaborative adventure in which both the clients and the therapist will be able to transform each other if they allow themselves to be touched by life. And kapag na-meet na ni therapist yung kanyang deepest self and then na-meet din ni client yung deepest part niya and then therefore the counseling process will be at its best. Effective yung nagiging daluyan nila ng connection as agents of change. And for the next is collaborative exploration. Therapy is a shared journey where both client and therapist is transformed through reflection and self-awareness. That is why kailangan bilang isang therapist, na-reach mo na din yung sufficient depth mo o kilala mo na rin yung sarili mo and open ka into healing others because alam mo sa sarili mo na meron ka ng kakayahan that in your own life, you ventured out your own life and then now meron ka ng capacity to join or your client to venture out their subjective world without losing your sense of identity.
And last, we have the exploration of the four worlds. So, ano ba yung sinatawag nating four worlds? So, first, we have the physical world. So, ito yung nare-relate natin, yung sarili natin through the environment or yung mortality na meron tayong question na how can I live fully knowing that life is temporary? So, it can be a guide for us to help our client understand themselves. First is we have the social world, how we connect with people and culture. What do relationships mean to me as a person or to our clients? And then next we have the personal world. So personal world, it tackles about how we relate to ourselves, our thoughts, and our potential. Like who am I, and who am I becoming? So and then last is that spiritual world is the way how we relate to the unknown or the values and purpose that we have. What do I believe in? And what gives my life direction? So, through this guided reflection, we can help our clients understand more kung ano yung nararanasan nila and guide them to have a more meaningful life in themselves.
Thank you for the very informative explanation, Carissa and Gail. Now, let us talk about how the existential approach is actually applied in different counseling settings. Starting with individual counseling, existential therapy helps clients explore their inner world rather than focusing on symptoms or diagnosis. The therapist serves as a companion who encourages the client to reflect on deep questions like, what gives my life meaning? Or am I living in line with who I really am? For example, someone experiencing a midlife crisis or struggling after a loss may be guided to confront their feelings of emptiness, reflect on their choices, and find personal meaning in their experiences. The process isn't about giving answers, but helping clients discover their own truth. In brief therapy, the existential approach focuses on awareness and choice within a shorter time frame. Even with limited sessions, the therapist helps clients recognize their freedom and responsibility in shaping their life. Techniques like mindful reflection, open ended questions, or exploring current dilemmas are used to help clients identify what's meaningful to them right now. The goal is not to rush change, but to spark insight and responsibility that the client can continue building on even after therapy ends. For group counseling, existential therapy encourages open dialogue about shared human struggles such as isolation, fear, freedom, and mortality. Group members realize that these experiences are universal, which can lessen feelings of loneliness. The therapist creates a safe, authentic atmosphere where members can confront their anxieties, question their assumptions, and learn from each other's perspectives. In this setting, the group itself becomes a small model of life, a space where people can practice being genuine, responsible, and connected. In the context of school counseling, existential principles help students think beyond academics. Counselors guide students in clarifying their values, reflecting on their identity, and exploring what truly gives them a sense of purpose. For example, when a student feels pressured to follow a certain path just to please others, an existential counselor might help them explore whether those choices reflect their own beliefs and passion. It's also a way to help adolescents deal with anxiety about the future by grounding them in self awareness and responsibility. Next, in career counseling, existential therapy goes beyond aptitude tests or job matches. The focus is on the meaning behind one's work, asking what kind of life do I want to build through my career? Or what would make my work feel purposeful? The counselor helps clients identify not only their skills but also their values and sources of fulfillment. This approach is especially useful for people who feel stuck or unfulfilled despite being successful on the surface. Lastly, existential therapy promotes holistic growth. It doesn't just target problems. It helps clients live more consciously and courageously, whether in schools, clinics, or groups. It reminds both clients and therapists that life is about ongoing discovery. It helps people accept uncertainty, make authentic choices, and live with greater ease and purpose. So overall, existential therapy can be adapted to many settings, but at its core, it's always about helping individuals face life's realities with awareness, meaning, and authenticity. For the next part, the existential approach has made several significant contributions to the field of counseling and psychotherapy. First, it recentered the person as the core of counseling. Instead of focusing mainly on techniques or diagnosis, existential therapy reminds us that counseling is about helping people become more self aware and responsible for their own lives. It emphasizes freedom, the idea that we always have choices, even when situations are difficult. This shift helped bring back the human side of therapy, where the client's lived experience is at the center. Second, it redefined anxiety, guilt, and death as natural and even meaningful parts of being human. Instead of seeing them as only symptoms to remove, existential therapists view them as signals that something in our life needs reflection or change. For example, feeling anxiety about the future can motivate a person to make more authentic decisions. That, too, it is not something to fear. It reminds us that life is temporary, which gives us our choices more meaning and urgency. Third, existential therapy promotes authentic living. It helps people make decisions based on their own values rather than external expectations. The goal is not to make clients normal or adjusted, but to help them live genuinely and with purpose, even if that means going against societal pressures. Another major contribution is its focus on a therapeutic relationship. Existential therapy views the counselor client relationship as a genuine human encounter, not a professional distance. The therapist is present as a real person, not an expert telling the client what to do, but someone who walks alongside them in their search for meaning. According to Derzen 2012, he describes that existential therapist is a fellow traveler who helps clients find their way through life's difficulties by reflecting and exploring possibilities together. The approach also shows strong relevance in modern crises. During events like the COVID-19 pandemic, many people struggle with isolation, fear, and uncertainty, issues directly connected to existential themes of freedom, responsibility, and mortality. This approach provides space for clients to process these emotions and find meaning even in suffering. Next, existential therapy has contributed to the integration of psychotherapy. Its ideas have been successfully blended with other approaches, such as the cognitive behavioral therapy. For example, the TILIO 2002 integrates cognitive behavioral therapy techniques like cognitive restructuring with existential reflection to help clients not only manage symptoms, but also discover deeper meaning in their experiences. Finally, it even parallels positive psychology, since both emphasize personal growth, resilience, and the capacity to live fully. But what makes existential therapy unique is that it embraces both the light and dark sides of human experience. It values happiness and strength, but also acknowledges pain, loss, and uncertainty as essential parts of life. Overall, the existential approach has made counseling more human, holistic, and reflective. It reminds us that therapy isn't just about fixing problems, it's about helping people live with awareness, authenticity, and purpose.
So thank you so much, Mika. So last part, we have the limitations of the existential approach. So first, we have the lack of systematic framework. So sinasabi lang dito na hindi kasi siya nagka-follow ng clear step-by-step process na nagiging challenge siya kadalasan sa mga new therapists to practice this kind of therapy. Next is that it is a co- it is a complex it's complex and there are abstract concepts. Katulad nga nung sinabi natin kanina, na authenticity at saka yung being in the world is medyo malawak siya. Like, hindi siya totally madaling i-apply kasi nga abstract yung concept na pinapahiwatig dito sa ganitong approach. Next is that meron siyang limited empirical evidence that hard to measure. So, hindi pa siya ganun kalawak scientifically na i-measure natin siya since this therapy is individualized. And then, last is that it high demands on the therapist kasi it requires maturity, life experience, and deep self-awareness na parang ang hirap i-practice kung hindi mo pa rin siya, kung sarili mo mismo is hindi mo pa alam. Parang ganun, kailangan, it requires a lot of experiences to practice this kind of therapy. So, dito, note natin that an effective therapist must not only follow techniques, but also have the courage and to be authentic and fully human as being a therapist. So, ending this session, meron tayong quote that many people suffer from the fear of finding oneself alone, and so they don't find themselves at all. Sabi nga ni Rollo May na existential therapy reminds us that life will always come with pain, uncertainty, at saka yung challenges. Pero these things are not to escape, pero they are invitations for us to grow, to see the beauty of life. It teaches us to make meaning of our lives. So, again, I am Micaela Carissa Fatima Aldana, together with my groupmates, Micaela Acasio and Lovelyn Gael Aquino, for reporting the existential therapy. So, meron tayo dito mga references na ginamit namin sa aming report for today. So, thank you so much, guys!